Hello, and welcome back to Of the People. I'm Robert Chernin with
Ericka Redic.
Last time I checked. And staying with us, and thank you so much, is Mark Meckler, President of Convention of the States and longtime patriot political player in D.C., although he's smart, he doesn't live in D.C. He lives in the real America, which is, we won't give you your location, but it's one of the states that's seen a lot of population growth lately. Can't imagine why. Mark, thank you for staying with us.
Hey, it's great to be with you guys. Thanks for the discussion.
Absolutely. I want to jump back into this whole the machinations of convention of states, and we left about the runaway convention concept, and I think you addressed that really well.
Yeah.
I guess one of the concerns, because obviously the Democrats, capital D, and the progressives, while they are ardently against a convention of states for the reasons you laid out, from my perspective, one of the concerns is if they can't beat it, and let's assume you get X amount of states,
right?
You need 2/3 states, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. 34 states.
And how many do we have so far?
20.
Okay, so at some point, I'd love to see the list of the next 14 that you think are going to fall, because that's where we need to put our efforts. But let's assume we get to that point, and hopefully we do. Then the question is, how do you prevent the convention, maybe not be a runaway convention, but in today's social media, information technology, we can even bring in chatbot and all those other things that are now, reality is hard to determine sometimes. How do we not lose control of that process? Maybe we don't call it a runaway convention, but there's going to be people who are going to try to either take out certain protections that are there. I mean, how do we control the process in real terms?
Yeah, look, I would say, first of all, we rely on the framers of the Constitution. Remember, they went through this exact same thing in convention in 1787. There were people who tried to derail it. There were people who tried to derail it during ratification. You had the media was involved. You had the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers. Most people think of the Federalist Papers and they think of some erudite scholarly paper. These were newspaper articles written under pseudonyms. And so that debate was going on in the public. People were making scurrilous claims about each other. So all of that was taking place back then. So they built a structure for today that could absorb all that. And let me explain what I mean. People are worried about a runaway convention. So I'm going to sort of lay out a scenario, because Robert, you said I've heard this 1,000 times. I think it's probably closer to 10,000 at this point. The one that I hear most often, and I understand this, I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment. It supports the rest of the Constitution. It helps keep a tyrannical government in line. I hear that we're going to lose the Second Amendment and that people are going to come to this convention. And let's say from California, where I used to live, I would not be surprised at all. In fact, I'd be shocked if they don't propose the repeal of the Second Amendment. Number one, it's not germane to convention, which means anybody from any conservative state. Today, there are 30 states with both houses controlled by Republicans could raise their hand, raise a point of order like in any legislature. And this will operate just like a legislature, and say that's out of order. And then it'll be up to the chairman and the parliamentarian to make a ruling. Now, I think you're going to have a dominant number of states that have called the convention for these limited purposes. 34 states are required, likely be ruled out of order. Let's say I'm wrong. Who knows what the chairman does? Who knows what the parliamentarian does? And they debate it. Now you got to get 26 states to say that they want to propose a convention or an amendment to repeal the Second Amendment. Let's remember today, 24 states, now 26 states as of Florida, have constitutional carry. You don't even need a permit to carry your weapon. And 24 states allow you to carry your weapon in the legislature. I've done it in most of those legislatures. And you actually have 14 states where you can take a long gun, put one in the chamber, throw it across your back on a sling, and walk in and watch the proceedings. The idea that you could get 38 states to ratify that or 26 states to pass it out of convention is ridiculous. And when I say ridiculous, I want to be really clear what I mean. It's outrageous. It's stupid. It's fantasy. It's not real. And I'll make an offer to your viewers, which is, if you believe that they could repeal the Second Amendment, or if you think there's an amendment that you as a conservative wouldn't like, then list the 38 states that will ratify that amendment. You can send that directly to me at mmeckler@cosaction.com. And if you list the 38 states and you make a legitimate argument, I'll pick up the phone and I'll give you a call and we'll have a conversation. I've made that offer now for 10 years straight to literally millions upon millions of people. Hannity, Levin, Shapiro, all the shows. I've never received an email because it takes only 13 states to stop anything that might make it out of convention that you or I wouldn't like.
Good point, Ericka.
That is a pretty darn good argument. I'm just sort of shocked that you can walk into any legislature with a gun loaded.
Hey,
So
Ericka, I know that you know and love Texas. If you go to the legislature in Texas, you're not required to have a permit, but if you happen to have a concealed carry permit, which you need for reciprocity with some other states, they have a fast pass lane at the Texas legislature. You don't have to wait in line. You go up, they scan your permit, you walk right in with your handgun.
I actually did not know that. All right. This is just as an aside. I remember when there was a bunch of protests going on, a few years ago at various state legislatures, DC, and all the news reporters were clutching their pearls and upset. Oh, all these people carrying. Oh, they got guns. Yeah. Exactly. The Second Amendment is not for hunting or protecting any kind of a culture. The Second Amendment is to make sure that our elected officials remember their place. So if they feel threatened, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but I think that's a good thing. I think they should have a healthy fear of the people you are governing. Because if you believe that you know better and you're going to continue to overreach and take rights away, it says in the Constitution, it is our duty and responsibility to do something about it.
I actually think that's in the Declaration, by the way, of Independence. It is in the Declaration. But I want to address something you just said, Ericka, which I think is interesting, because you said that you want that the government should be afraid of the people. I think the government is afraid of the people. I think that's why we are where we are. I think when you look at Brexit, when you look at Bolsonaro in Brazil, when you look at the whole Trump phenomenon, and the reason Trump was such a threat, not just to the deep state, so to speak, but I won't say that Trump is the successor to the Tea Party movement. I wouldn't insult the Tea Party movement that way. And I'm a supporter of Trump. And Mark, I obviously know your background and how central you were to that movement in its founding. But I think, Ericka, that's exactly why we are where we are. That's why this whole divide and conquer thing, right? If you keep people worried about their job, if you keep them worried, if you divide them into small boxes and you have them fight each other, then the elites and the people who think they know better, whether it's the administrative state or not, their power is safe. But so, Mark, I want to ask you sort of a different kind of question. I understand all this, and I think it's hugely important what you're doing, and want to know sort of who you think the next 3 or 4 states are they're going to sign on. But if you're willing to go on record, but I guess my question is, a more conventional way, no pun intended, to do this might be to take each of those 3 things and try to get Congress to pass them, right? So rather than, because I understand now a little better than I did before about the process and sort of the fail-safes I think that are in place, why not go through the traditional amendment process in Congress and try to get the legislators to propose congressional amendments to the Constitution that way?
Look, I mean, I think in theory that's a beautiful thing, and I guess I would ask you a question in response, Robert, which is, what do you think the odds are of Congress passing a balanced budget amendment or a term limit amendment or anything that takes their own power away? And that's sort of rhetorical, but I'll answer it for you in terms of human nature, which the framers understood well, which is people don't voluntarily limit their own power. I mean, we have very few examples in history. George Washington was asked to be a king, and he said that was outrageous. But if you want to go through history, try to find examples of tyrants, people who've overstepped their reach, overstepped their legal bounds, saying, you know what, I think I might be outside of my bounds, and I'd like to give power back to the people, or I want to give power to somebody else. That's just not human nature. In the 1980s, by the way, we were very close to calling a convention on term limits. We got to 32 states. And yet the states started to push back. We had a term limits amendment that was proposed in Congress. You can watch the video of this online as they cheer in Congress as that proposed amendment is defeated by a single vote. They're never going to pass it. It takes 2/3 of both houses. We can barely get 50% of either house. To get 2/3 of both houses to agree to limit their power, I'd say we'd be waiting for all of eternity.
Okay, fair enough. So in this process, I mean, do you think that you will be successful in getting a convention of states called? And if so, how long? I mean, no one's going to hold you. Well, it's going to be 3 days and 3 years and 2 months in one day.
Yeah.
But I mean, how far out is this process going? Who do you think the next states are that are going to sign aboard this? And realistically speaking, if you had to prognosticate, you would think that a convention of states would be called, if you're successful, by the year 2028. I'm making this up, of course.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I want to say it's really hard. This has taken a long time. It's a lot longer than I would like. I've been at it 10 years, but this is what the framers intended. In other words, they didn't want it to be easy to amend the Constitution. This is a big deal, right? You're going to go in and you're going to amend the founding charter of the United States of America, the base code of the United States of America. That's a big deal, and it should be really hard. It should take years. It should take a national consensus. It should take millions of people. So while I get frustrated on a human level sometimes, I think this is how the process was intended to work. Are we going to get there? Yep, we're going to get there. And the reason I say we're going to get there is it's kind of an either or. If we can't take power away from Washington, D.C., then Washington, D.C. is going to crash the country. And we just saw this in the debt ceiling debate. Even at its best, the plan that was proposed by the Republicans before they caved in and gave a bunch of it away wasn't going to do anything to fix any of these problems. And you can look back through all of American history. And by all, I mean go all the way back to the founding, Washington, all the way through to the current administration. Every administration, except for Calvin Coolidge's administration, has grown the government. And so that's the only way we're going to do it. So yeah, I think we're going to get it done. When we get it done, right now, I'm saying 2028, maybe 2030. I say those numbers because we have to make it through enough electoral cycles. We currently have 30 states with both houses controlled by Republicans. I'll be working to help flip Virginia. Their House of Delegates flipped in the last cycle. It's up this year for their Senate. So I'm hoping we can finish that off and flip Virginia. And then there are a few other states we're going to have to flip to get to 34 because I don't think any Democrat states are going to pass this.
I was going to ask you that. Is there a state whose legislature is controlled by the Democrats that has signed on board?
No, none. But to be fair,
what does that tell you?
Yeah, but to be fair, we are seeing more and more Democrats in states either controlled by Republicans or Democrat states who are coming on board with convention of states. It's really important that we couch this properly. It's not a partisan thing. It's partisan in the sense that I'm a conservative. Mike Ferris, my co-founder, is a conservative. A lot of the people who stood up for it, Mark Levin did a whole show on it this week. He's a conservative. But the reality is all we're saying is take the power away from DC and give it back to the states. And that means that a very liberal state like California, a liberal state like Vermont or Connecticut, these are states would have more power under the Constitution post convention of states that we're proposing. So it's not about giving conservatives more power or giving liberals more power. This is truly just about restoring federalism.
I just want to make sure I want to make sure everybody heard, though, in that last statement, Calvin Coolidge, Vermont president.
Silent Cal.
I'm just saying.
He was effective because he was silent. I just want to put that out there. I wish our current president was silent. Actually, I wish the president 2 presidents ago who was on the verge of transforming America, little did we know, was silent too, but no such luck. No, look, I understand that. If this can be couched in nonpartisan terms, I think there's a greater chance of success here. But let's be real. People buy on emotion and they justify on logic what they've already bought. So the whole fear factor, this will be pigeonholed as a Republican effort unless somewhere along the way you either get prominent Democratic politicians to come out or state legislatures that are controlled by Democrats to come out and support this. Just my opinion. I don't live this like you do or breathe this every day. I just think I think people are tired of partisan politics, and I think the more of a populist movement you can make this, the greater the chance of
curious,
success.
Mark, with the rise in popularity that we're seeing of the likes of Robert Kennedy Jr., a very prominent Democrat, have you gotten any conversations with him or any of the other potential candidates for 2024?
No, I have not. I would love to talk with Kennedy. I think he's an interesting guy. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not like a lot of the conservatives that are getting sucked in by the guy. The guy's a leftist. He's a hard leftist. So he said some things that people on the right find appealing, and I think we got to be really careful of his overall politics and understand that. But I think I'd love to talk to him and see if we could get his support. I'm not against having support of folks that are on the left. But I'll be honest with you, I've talked to folks who are on the left that are totally in support of what we're doing. Some prominent folks on the left who shall remain nameless by their request. And what they say is, look, I would support it, but if I do, then I'm just going to get flamed by my side. They're going to attack me. They're going to, drive me out of the left. We have people way back when who supported it that told me that they just got trashed. Their email list shrank. They got trashed in social media. And so there's a strong tribalism on the left that prevents the left from stepping outside of the lane. And so I think it's, I hate to say this, but I think it's going to have to be a right-wing conservative Republican effort down the line.
That
makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Now, look, I wish you success. I'm so thankful for you to come on and educate certainly me, if not our listeners. I can use all the education I can get.
Ooh, okay. Quick. Hold on, quick, because we're getting the sign. We're getting the 3-minute warning from Benjamin. What do you think? What is your guess as to the next few states that you think are going to pass the?
You're going to make them go on record. I was giving them a pass, by the way, but okay, come on, well,
Mark. The next state is absolutely North Carolina. North Carolina, okay. We've already passed the House. We've actually done that a couple of years. We've gotten stalled in the Senate in the past. Literally, as we speak, things are moving in the Senate. It's been tied up with their budget. They're still in session. They're one of the few not year-round states that's still in session. So I expect that we're going to pass before the end of the summer in North Carolina. That'll become state number 21. Then I would say really actually for me kind of hard to predict what happens in the next cycle as you get into the next year. I'll have to look at that as we get late into the fall. We'll start to kind of prioritize states and predict what it looks like it's going to move. But I say North Carolina is next.
Well, and everybody listening and watching. Everybody listening and watching, go to conventionofstates.com. There you can see the states that have already passed. There's a great interactive map that shows what has passed, where the article, or should I say, the petition is at in each of the 50 states. And you can actually see in real time the progress and where your state is at, where you're listening and watching from. Where is your state at in the process?
Mark, last question real quick.
Yeah, and you can sign the petition there. Go sign the petition, conventionofstates.com.
And another thing, Ericka, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Probably will come up with something to interrupt you in a minute, for sure. Definitely.
I don't even want to go there. Mark, quick one. First of all, thank you. But one quick question. So if a state legislature that passed the constitutional convention amendment or amendment, I don't know what the correct terminology is.
It's called a resolution.
Resolution. Thank you. If it flips to a Democrat at some point, can they rescind it?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, what you see is and this is a funny thing about saying there's going to be a runaway convention. Every state that's flipped to Democrat in the last few years has actually gone out and repealed all of their Article 5 applications. There are a bunch of them on record on a bunch of different subjects across the country over the last 400 years. The Dem states go in and they immediately repeal all their Article 5 applications. So, yeah, we have a rearguard action to fight. And this is one of the reasons it's so important. And our activists are engaged in elections all around the country, making sure they protect Republican majorities in state legislatures.
Well, my inner Jersey who sponsors those rat bastards, but you get
by the way, we have a big team in New Jersey and New York, so they're all just like you. So I appreciate it.
They're awesome.
Well, we we like a good fight, and we generally win. Right?
Yes.
So I mean, it's all about fisticuffs. Folks, you have been listening to Mark Meckler, the president of Convention of States, and this has been, Mark, a fascinating, educational, and really great conversation. Where can everybody contact you again, or where can they find out more about Convention of States? Ericka, I was going to do that.
Yep. Go to conventionofstates.com, sign the petition, get involved. Most importantly, click the Take Action tab. It's great to listen. It's great to get educated like this, but being in the game is what counts. Conventionofstates.com, or folks want to follow me personally day to day. Now that Musk is in charge of Twitter, I'm back on Twitter, and they can follow me at Mark Meckler.
Excellent. Mark, thank you for joining us. Folks, this has been fun, but we got to go. Thanks for being with us. I'm Robert Chernin of The People.
And I'm Ericka Redic.
We'll see you next week. Take care.